Tonight we were warned and the heat delivered, temperatures above 40 degrees right across Sydney. In breaking news, homes ripped apart as a superstorm smashes the Central Coast. A car and a bus collide near Rooty Hill, teens in hospital after a U-turn gone wrong. The Prime Minister to slash immigration as we're warned our population could hit 46 million. Cleaning products and a toy train blamed for a fire that destroyed a Northern Beaches home. And Nick Kyrgios out of the Australian Open, dropping the bombshell on his OnlyFans account.
This is 7 News with Angela Cox.
Good evening. We begin with breaking news on what has been a day of searing heat across Sydney. An intense storm cell has just smashed the Central Coast. At least 9 houses have been damaged at Long Jetty. A roof has been blown off a factory, landing on top of a nearby home. Residents inside were trapped, unable to leave because of fallen power lines. We'll take you live to our reporter on the scene, coming up shortly. It was a true summer scorcher in Sydney today, a heat wave sending temperatures soaring across most of the city. They peaked at just under 44 degrees at Holsworthy Barracks this afternoon, even reaching 40 in the heart of the city just after midday. From beaches to pools to ice bars, locals sought relief from the heat wherever they could.
From the west to the waves, a scorching Saturday. The whole city was trying to escape.
It's going to be crazy.
Got up at 5:30. It's already stinking.
Reds aren't made for this weather.
Stifling heat not felt in 3 years. The extremes testing emergency services.
New South Wales Ambulance Service has seen approximately a 20% increase in calls.
9 o'clock and already 30 degrees.
Already we are starting to feel the heat.
Cold water now, then hide.
At Prospect, they were queuing outside Raging Waters for the 10 a.m. opening.
Summer has definitely made its presence felt. We've got the great splash pad area for the kids. We've got our beach and our lazy river.
Bondi bustling with an estimated 20,000 beachgoers. Fairly calm seas meant surf lifesavers were mostly on the lookout for heat stroke on the sands. Maybe not the best day for runner Ned Brockman's publicity stunt, hitting the treadmill as temperatures nudged 40 degrees.
It's just weather. You can't let the weather take too much of a toll on you. You just got to control what you can control.
The city's pools inviting and free for some councils most of the day.
Good. Yeah, the water's nice.
On the harbour, it was one big party, with waterholes packed too. At Penrith, they were revving up to try to cool down on the river. The conditions impacting public transport, all Sydney trains running at lower speeds as a safety precaution until later this evening, causing delays, with around 18 power outages reported affecting around 6,000 customers. The city's canines also feeling it. Temperatures peaking in the city and on the coast around midday, with 40 degrees at Observatory Hill. At the airport, 43.5. Scorching for longer in the west, the highs not hitting until 3 p.m. 43.6 degrees at Penrith, the same for Richmond, 42 at Campbelltown and Olympic Park and Bankstown. The Prime Minister weighing in.
It's a reminder that there just might be something in this climate change stuff.
And tonight here at Sydney Olympic Park, it's still around 37 degrees as about 100,000 people pour into the precinct for 3 big events, the biggest being the Foo Fighters at the stadium, the pre-show already underway there. There's also gates opening for 50 Cent at the arena, and the Epic Music Festival is underway. Health authorities in particular warning festival goers about the dangers of overheating. They're urging everyone to make sure they stay hydrated, with tens of thousands of people prepared to sweat it out for their favourites here tonight. Angela.
Okay, Paul Caddock, let's go to Amy Clements now at RFS headquarters. Amy, the heat kept fire crews busy as well.
Yeah, and it was a challenging day across the state. Right now, 86 fires are burning, 39 of which are yet to be contained. It was a tough day out on the fire grounds for those out there, with temperatures well into the 40s. But all things considered, we're told it could have been a lot worse. And with a cool change on the way, we're warned to remain vigilant. Making sure the trucks are ready. It's all hands on deck.
So it may well be that we need to ask them to shelter in place.
Extremely hot weather today, but also really low humidity, which makes bushfires a great risk. We're seeing very high temperatures out west, but also here on the coast.
The Terry Hills Brigade gearing up for a hot, dangerous day, not just on the northern beaches, but anywhere.
We're also on standby to go on a strike team to any community across New South Wales.
And while temperatures soared across Sydney,
with no ignition, well, ultimately no problem.
fireys were kept busy in other parts of the state. Further north, this fire burns out of control in Narrabri. Today, Greater Sydney, the lower Central West Plains, Northern Riverina and Southern Slopes were at extreme fire danger. All of those were on total fire bans, along with the Central Ranges. Tomorrow, that eases right back. Sydney back to moderate fire danger and a number of other LGAs rated as high. But the danger hasn't passed yet.
We still have a hot week ahead of us. People need to be prepared.
Summer is well and truly on our doorstep.
Amy Clements, 7 News.
Time to check the forecast now with Amber Laidler. Amber, what's the latest on those storms?
Good evening, Angel. We are still seeing a number of severe storm cells tracking over parts of Sydney and surrounding areas tonight. That storm cell that passed over Long Jetty was very fast moving, but it packed a punch, producing rain, hail and those damaging wind gusts, with several millimetres and near gale gusts also recorded near Terry Hills as another cell passed over the city's north. Severe weather warnings are in place this evening, with more severe isolated storms likely to develop at this stage. Those areas of concern are further north near the mid-north coast, near the Hunter and also further south near the Victorian border. But as we heard earlier, temperatures across Sydney today cracked 40 degrees in most parts. Sydney Airport reached its hottest December day in almost 30 years, and it's still very warm in parts tonight, particularly across the west. Right now, still 43 degrees in some parts. But we've got that southerly buster pushing up the coast this evening, which will flush out that heat. We'll see temperatures dip back down into the low 20s, more potentially damaging winds developing. We'll have more details in your full forecast a little later, Angela.
Thank you, Amber. A bus has smashed into a car in Western Sydney. 4 passengers on board were injured and needed treatment in hospital. The driver of the car shaken but unhurt.
The 756 service that never made it to Mount Druitt. Instead, it ended its route, ploughing into a car on Rooty Hill Road North.
Is she good now? Come jump out. I'm so sorry.
The collision decimated the bus's door and windshield and the entire driver's side of the white RAV4. The woman behind the wheel climbing onto the back seat to safety. Chris Merritt and his brothers were among those on board the bus.
The bus was speeding and the car came out. We T-boned it.
But police investigations tell a different story. Instead, it's thought the white car's driver had performed a U-turn and didn't see the bus coming. Chris and his group walked away unscathed.
I don't know, we're probably trying to get an Uber home from a mate, or I don't know, probably catch another bus when it comes.
A number of others left the scene in ambulances. 3 men on board the bus were brought here to Blacktown Hospital, one of them suffering hand and arm injuries. A 4th man was taken to Mount Druitt Hospital, but all have since been released. Authorities say it's incredibly lucky no one was seriously injured or charged over the crash. Just a minor accident that caused major damage and distress.
I'm so sorry.
Jodie Lee, 7 News.
A 6th detainee released from immigration detention under a High Court ruling has been arrested. He was found to have breached his curfew conditions in Melbourne's inner west overnight. The 36-year-old African man was arrested by federal police and faced court today. If convicted, he could face 5 years in prison and a $93,000 fine. The federal government has announced major plans to scale back migration, including a crackdown on immigration rorts and exploitation. It comes as new data reveals record population growth, increasing by more than 500,000 people this year.
Since World War II, Australia has welcomed millions of migrants.
Without immigration, the future of the Australia we know will be both uneasy and brief.
But today, the Prime Minister acknowledged a dark side of migration.
In some cases, the system is being abused. We have a plan to fix migration, putting an end to any abuse and any rorts.
This year, there was record growth, the population exploding by more than 500,000 people, the majority from overseas.
The horse has already bolted on immigration, and the Prime Minister not only can't catch it, he can't find it.
Causing problems with housing and infrastructure.
Very tight rental market, surging rents, and of course we've now got record home prices in Australia.
The Prime Minister pointing out that international students can exploit the education system just to get into the country.
Students who come in and they're not studying at all. People can say one thing and then do another, not actually attending university, and it's just working the whole time. And I think that's the kind of students that they're concerned about.
The latest data shows if the government doesn't act now, 46 million people could call Australia home by 2071, the population growing by 77%.
Bottom line is we need to get those immigration numbers back to the averages we saw prior to the pandemic, which is around 240,000 people per annum, and ideally a little bit less than that.
The Prime Minister wouldn't say what his migration target is, but promised to release the details of the government's new strategy on Monday. Tougher laws for temporary visa holders are expected.
And I think if both major political parties commit to targeting net migration over the long term, that will be a good thing for everybody. Leave aside the politics.
Isabel Mullen, 7 News.
There are concerns for a worker still unaccounted for more than a day after an explosion at a factory in Melbourne's southeast. Firefighters worked into the night to put out the blaze, but what's left of the building is too dangerous to enter. 4 people were taken to hospital, 2 of them firefighters. The US has again vetoed a Security Council resolution calling for a ceasefire in Gaza because it didn't condemn the October 7 terror attack by Hamas. Human Rights Watch has slammed the move, accusing Washington of providing Israel with weapons and diplomatic cover.
Emerging from another wrecked home, these are the survivors of the latest Israeli strike on southern Gaza. Their lives turned upside down. Those killed, recovered, adding to an escalating death toll. This house was full of children, and the house next door, my uncle's, was also full of children, this man says. The hospital in what was meant to be a safe area, now at the heart of the danger zone. There is nowhere else to be treated but the floor. Even with its military presence on the ground in Gaza, with thousands of troops, Israel's aerial bombardment hasn't slowed.
Attacks from air, land and sea are intense, continuous and widespread.
At the UN Security Council in New York, the Secretary General warned of humanitarian support systems collapsing, followed by a breakdown of public order.
I fear the consequences could be devastating for the security of the entire region.
As the US led the veto of calls for a humanitarian ceasefire.
We still cannot comprehend why the resolution's authors declined to include language condemning Hamas's horrific terrorist attack on Israel on October 7, an attack that killed over 1,200 people.
In London, Hugh Whitfield, 7 News.
A routine medal presentation ceremony at the Kremlin has become the moment Vladimir Putin revealed he will run again for president. He was responding to a soldier who asked if he would stand in the March election. Putin has either been president or prime minister for more than 20 years. 2 years ago, he signed a law which would allow him to run for 2 more 6-year terms. Plans to build more homes in heritage areas have been flagged by the state government as suburbs across Sydney experience record price growth. Auctions show no sign of slowing down as the end of year approaches.
On Australia's street, it's the Australian dream, a 3-bedroom property in the booming inner west.
It's a lovely place to live. Everything we have is selling. Our clearance rate is at 91%, which is pretty high.
Buyers are looking at committing and securing a property before Christmas.
For sellers, there's strong opportunity in Banks Meadow, Beacon Hill, Millers Point, Parkley, Clontarf and Denniston East, all recording growth of at least 15% in the past year, driven by demand and a lack of housing supply.
We do have a massive shortfall at the moment in the number of homes available, and it's showing up in pricing. We have strong population growth. We have a very low level of supply. We've got problems in the construction sector.
A key component of plans to create more homes, the state government will rezone land around train stations, but many aren't happy about the impact on heritage sites.
You're going to now have multi-level housing, which will destroy the character
of a conservation area which is more than 100 years old.
Croydon is one of a few suburbs earmarked. Others include Dulwich Hill, Balmain and Rozelle. On the North Shore, Roseville, Lindfield, Killara and Gordon.
We can solve the housing crisis by concentrating development in and around town centres where you can have urban renewal.
Angelique Opie, 7 News.
A mother and son escape as their home is destroyed by fire after the break, the potentially lethal combination that started the blaze. Pills, cash and luxury cars, police smash a cross-border steroid ring. Later, lifting the lid on Australian cults, why they're on the rise. Very Irish farewell, the moving tribute to a music legend. And later, where to shop for Christmas presents on a budget. Returning now to our breaking news on 7 about the intense storm cell on the Central Coast that's carved a path of destruction. Angelique Opie is on the ground there. Angelique, the wind has ripped off roofs.
And this wild weather tore through this area at around 4 this afternoon, and you can see the brunt of these damaging winds. This factory roof blew onto this home here on Minto Avenue in Longjetty. We understand at least one person is trapped inside. One of 10 roofs that have been torn off. There's been flash flooding. Multiple power lines and trees have collapsed. The Weather Bureau described the storm as fast moving, quickly intensifying as it made its way from Tuggerah to the coast.
The rain and hail was going sideways. I had rain coming in my back door, in all of my windows. I lost washing off the line. There was pots flying everywhere. There's trees down near my house. It was insane enough for a mini cyclone.
There are more than 3,000 homes still without power around Longjetty, the Entrance and Bateau Bay, with the storms also affecting power to another 1,600 homes in Erina and Green Point. The SES has certainly got their work cut out for them. More than 140 calls, a busy night ahead. Ange.
OK, Angel, thanks so much. Fire has ripped through a house on the northern beaches. An elderly mother and her son grateful to have escaped the inferno. Crews could not save the home, which was gutted by the flames.
Lighting up the street from every conceivable angle. The flames in this Davidson home erupted around 8 last night and drew a crowd. Some neighbours were drawn all the way into the home to save an elderly woman unaware her house was on fire. She and her 43-year-old son are lucky to be alive today. He suffered minor burns to his legs.
Everyone in the street was very emotional.
It could have been a lot worse. We could have been talking about a loss of life.
From a distance, fireys kept their hoses on the flames perched on the edge of a pool.
It was huge. It started off slow and then it just built from one end of the house.
It then threatened surrounding homes and trees which survived as winds whipped up flames.
Lots of crashing and banging and lots of ember sparks going onto other houses. I'm glad everybody's fine.
Firefighters couldn't save the home and were still putting out the embers this morning.
The fire began in a top room, possibly caused by a potentially lethal combination of vapours from a cleaning solvent and an ignition source, in this case, an electric toy train set.
A lot of the cleaning products are flammable, so just be careful how you're using them.
A wreath on the door and a living room Christmas tree are intact, but now unreachable after a sad December evening. Tom Saker, 7 News.
Musical trailblazer Shane McGowan has been laid to rest in Ireland. Thousands line the streets of Dublin to pay tribute to the lead singer of the Pogues as a horse-drawn carriage carried his casket through the streets.
Dirty old town, dirty old town.
His funeral was held in County Tipperary. The Irish president and friends such as Johnny Depp and Nick Cave were among the mourners. The singer, who combined punk with Irish folk music, passed away last week at the age of 65. Pope Francis says he's feeling much better after a health scare that forced him to withdraw from the United Nations annual climate conference. While the Pope was able to attend his weekly general audience, it was clear he's still recovering from flu-like symptoms as he struggled to speak. The fight to save a young man's foot bitten by a shark. Up next, the idyllic location that almost turned deadly. The stash of drugs giving new meaning to organised crime. Hollywood heartthrob, Oscar nominee remembering Ryan O'Neal. The crooked cowboy who spilt nearly $1 million worth of wine.
And ahead in sport, teammates gather and predict an explosive end to David Warner's Test career.
As we heard earlier, it's been a scorching day across Sydney. Locals struggling to keep cool as temperatures climbed, and now more than 100,000 people have poured into Olympic Park braving heatwave conditions to take in a show. Let's get back to Paul Caddack. Paul, a jam-packed evening there.
Hello again, Angela. Yes, indeed, still lots of people arriving for these three big events happening here tonight. Most of those 100,000 people are here for the Foo Fighters at the stadium. There's also 50 Cent playing at the arena. They'll both be on stage around 8 o'clock. The Epic Music Festival is already underway at the Sydney Showgrounds. As people have been arriving, they have been warned to make sure they stay hydrated. It's still around 36 degrees here. It got to 42 at Olympic Park earlier today. Penrith and Richmond getting up to 43.6 degrees on a day that was a busy one for paramedics. Busy too for power crews, with the high temperatures and extra power use being blamed for more than a dozen blackouts affecting thousands of customers. Some of the worst affected areas being Auburn, Belmore, Turramurra and Wahroonga. Sydney trains have also been slowed down as a safety precaution. They're putting on extra services tonight to make sure everyone here can get home at the end of the night. Hopefully it will be a little cooler when they do. The Bureau is predicting that the southerly change should reach the city at around 8 o'clock tonight and reach Penrith around 9 tonight. It can't come soon enough. Angela?
Indeed. OK, Paul Caddack at Olympic Park for us. Thank you. A man has almost lost a foot in a shark attack off central Queensland. The 20-year-old was attacked late yesterday off a remote beach near Bundaberg. The swimmer was airlifted to Royal Brisbane Hospital last night and underwent emergency surgery to save his foot. It's not known what type of shark bit him. Two men are accused of orchestrating one of Australia's largest ever illegal steroid syndicates. Police seize luxury cars, drugs and cash in cross-border raids and vow that more arrests will follow.
A steroid syndicate spanning 3 states comes unstuck. Police swooping in on the alleged Melbourne masterminds, arresting 32-year-olds Nathan Williamson and Daniel Tennis. The men are accused of buying steroids and prescription drugs from an overseas supplier and selling them on the dark web through the post and at several large-scale distribution centres, including a popular Melbourne gym.
These steroids have been used beyond just the gym environment, and then that's what grabbed our attention.
It's the largest seizure of its type, and police say it's lining the pockets of organised crime figures. 2 men in Canberra and 1 in New South Wales have also been charged as part of the 7-month-long investigation.
A house was restrained, 5 motor vehicles were seized, 3 motorcycles, hundreds of thousands of dollars in cash and significant quantities of prescription and controlled drugs.
It will take investigators a number of days to count and weigh the drugs and cash, estimated to be in the millions of dollars. Sarah Jones, 7 News.
3 people were lucky to escape injury when their car burst into flames at Greenacre. It happened shortly before 2 o'clock this morning on the Hume Highway. The driver and passengers escaping just in time. The vehicle, a heavily modified Audi, was destroyed in the blaze. Hollywood heartthrob Ryan O'Neal, nominated for an Oscar for his role in Love Story, has died aged 82. He was synonymous with romantic leads in the 70s and 80s, but also made headlines over his real-life dramas and relationships.
What would you say if I told you I think I'm in love with you?
Centre stage in this Hollywood love story.
Who said anything about marriage?
I'm saying it now.
Ryan O'Neal, America's golden-haired heartthrob, catapulted from TV soap opera to Oscar-nominated silver screen stardom.
What's up, Doc?
I beg your pardon?
We've got to stop meeting like this.
I think you're making a mistake. You see, I just came in here for something for a headache.
Opposite Barbara Streisand in the 1970s What's Up doc, he was Love's leading man on and off the screen, including a 30-year relationship with Charlie's Angel, Farrah Fawcett. The fame, awards and recognition far from the world of professional boxing, where he cut his teeth.
Who would have thought I would end up with a star on the Walk of Fame? I thought I'd end up in jail, and look where I am.
A powerful performance with his then 9-year-old daughter, Tatum, in Paper Moon.
I want my $200.
O'Neill's career steamrolled through the 2000s.
I need your weapon and I need your badge.
He was diagnosed with leukemia in 2001 and with prostate cancer in 2012. His son today confirming his death. As a human being, my father was as generous as they come, the funniest person in any room.
Jenny, I'm sorry.
Ryan O'Neill was 82. In the United States, David Woywood, 7 News.
It's a crime that could make many cry. A man dressed as a cowboy has sent nearly $1 million worth of wine spilling out of tanks at a US winery. He's seen calmly entering the family-run business, punching in a code on a keypad, then leaving after the alcohol begins flooding rooms and running down drains. The wine was about to be bottled in time for the holiday season. The callous cowboy is yet to be caught. Australia's most wanted criminal hiding inside a cult. Just ahead, secrets revealed inside Australia's extremist groups. A moment to remember for the selfless firefighter who lost everything. Smart shopping tips to help ease the Christmas cost of living squeeze.
And soon in sport, Steve Smith's Big Bash cameo. Now look out, Pakistan.
A firefighter who lost his own home in a bushfire while trying to save others has been honoured today. Steve Cox was on duty when his home went up in flames. The fire also destroyed his fire and rescue service medals. Today he was presented with replacement medals to acknowledge his dedication to helping others. Extreme religious cults are usually associated with Middle America, but it turns out they're closer than we think. An explosive investigation has exposed the inner workings of cults here at home, with secrets unlocked for the first time.
He was Australia's most wanted man, Luke Hunter, a murderer who broke out of jail while threatening security guards with a knife in 1996.
Hunter, serving time for shooting a man in the back of the head, disappears into bushland.
He wasn't seen again until 2011, when the fugitive was discovered living under a new name and in a secret religious sect, the Anglican Catholic Mission Community, formerly known as the Jesus Group of North Queensland.
He worked as a groundsman at the hospital from 1997 until he was arrested by police. He helped disabled children, even played Santa at Christmas.
One thing we found that it's really, really difficult to work out exactly what goes on in these communities because they're so secretive.
The rise of extremist views during the pandemic put a spotlight on their possible threat.
It's happening in Australia right now.
Journalists from the Courier Mail have spent months taking a closer look at the cult, which holds communes and properties in Queensland, Sydney and regional New South Wales. Founded in the 70s by this man, Daniel Landy Ariel, who spoke to 7 News before his death in 2015.
He's a self-proclaimed prophet.
I'm not going to condemn somebody to hell just because they've lied about their past to protect themselves.
Former members tracked down, bravely speaking, but fearful of being identified.
Women don't have a voice to speak up. It's almost impossible to police them, but for many people who are in cults, for their families, they are at a loss of what to do.
Each sharing personal stories of life inside.
One of the things they require of their members, other than handing over all their property when they join, is to take on a biblical name. They have to learn an ancient language that they believe Jesus spoke.
Exploring what it's like to leave.
One of the sad things about organisations like this is if you leave, you're really cut off from the people who stay behind, and for some people that means their family.
You can watch the docuseries at preyedupon.com.au and read more in tomorrow's Sunday Telegraph. Sally Guite, 7 News.
Christmas shopping tips to help ease the cost of living crunch. Still to come, gift ideas on a budget and the big retailers where you can still find savings. Don't miss that story soon on 7 News. First, Matt's here with sport, and Matt, we have a new Australian cricket captain.
Very well earned and very proud too, Ange. Good evening, everyone. It seals Elisa Healy and Mitchell Stark's status as the power couple with big plans for the summer. All the cricket news next. Plus, Nick Kyrgios joins a risque fan site and drops an Australian Open bombshell. And the proud honour for the Paralympians changing our sporting and cultural landscapes. She's trialled for almost 2 years. Now Elisa Healy is officially captain of Australia's all-conquering women's cricket team. With husband Mitch Stark headed for the first test against Pakistan, Healy is determined to lead her team into a new era.
From stand-in to Australia's 20th female captain, a moment worth capturing for Elisa Healy.
The captain, in my mind, what is the most exciting cricket team in the world.
Both with the Sixers Big Bash franchise, husband Mitch Stark and Healy now cricket's highest profile couple. Filling in for the past 2 years, Healy formally succeeds Meg Lanning. Next week, she leads Australia on an historic tour of India.
I want to help create a new legacy for this Australian team.
Officially takes the role now and gets to, I guess, leave her mark on how she wants to lead the group.
Here last night, brilliant batting in the Sydney Sixers' 8-run win over the Melbourne Renegades, led by Steve Smith.
That's some sort of shot from Steve Smith. Width driven. You can hit it along the carpet as well if you want.
That's a better shot.
Genius batting from Steve Smith.
61 from 42 balls. Josh Philippi putting patrons at risk in both tiers of the members' stand.
What a shot.
Renegade Jake Fraser-McGurk belting one even further.
Onto the roof.
That is massive.
Huge.
3 wickets for Ben Dwarshuis, bravely playing despite the sudden death of his father this week. In the field, brilliant boundary riding by Jordan Silk. Smooth as.
Oh, that is an amazing piece of fielding.
Yeah, I thought it was a great performance. We had to dig quite deep there.
Perth bound for the first test against Pakistan. Forget Travis Head being promoted to open.
From the conversations I had, they are pretty keen for me to stay in the middle order, and as long as I'm playing, I'm happy to be in the middle order.
Big things predicted from besieged opener Dave Warner.
One of our greatest ever players. I back him in every day of the week to go out and perform.
Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
A wild overnight storm in Canberra ruined the last chance for Pakistan to fine-tune for the first test. The final day of their tour match with the PM's 11 was abandoned due to a waterlogged pitch at Manuka Oval. Stranded on 136 not out, Matt Renshaw knows it'll take far more than one innings to become David Warner's successor.
I think that's what makes it a bit more frustrating about it all. People are always talking about this being the audition for it.
Pakistan's batsmen will go to Perth with confidence, but doubts remain over the strength of their bowling attack. You wonder if we'll ever see Nick Kyrgios play tennis again. Kyrgios will miss his second straight Australian Open due to the persistent wrist injury that's followed his knee problems. He announced it via his new platform known for risque content, but this was wholesome Kyrgios.
Obviously heartbreaking. I've had so many amazing memories there, and I just want to really get back to playing at the top of my game and doing it right, and I need a little bit more time.
With just one match this year, the 2022 Wimbledon finalist has lost his world ranking altogether at 28. Time is getting away from tennis's wild child. Benji Marshall is dealing with his first big headache as an NRL coach. West Tigers all-time leading try scorer David Norfoluma is refusing to take part in pre-season training, claiming unfair treatment by the football department. He'll return to the club on Monday to try and end the standoff. And the Roosters could receive salary cap relief for Wallaby star Mark Nwanganitawase as part of the ARL's plan to sign players from other codes. After 4 straight losses to start the season, the Mariners are building steam in their A-League title defence. They're unbeaten in their last 3 games, thumping Western United 4-0 in Gosford last night.
Tullio arriving. Marco Tullio! Beautiful goal! Absolutely sensational from the Brazilian.
In Wellington tonight, Newcastle led table toppers the Phoenix 2-0 at half-time. Oscar Piastri capped his debut Formula One season with the FIA's Rookie of the Year award. He also won it after taking out the Formula 2 title in 2021.
Enjoyed my rookie season in F1 a lot. Hopefully it's the last rookie season of my career.
Now a veteran of 8 MotoGP seasons, Jack Miller returned to his roots racing against amateurs on a Brisbane dirt track.
To come back and show that you are human and, you know, that's what you can progress to. I mean, it's an awesome way to give back in a small sense.
Miller is under pressure to keep his seat at KTM after finishing 11th this year. The NBA Commissioner says Josh Giddey won't be suspended while police investigate his alleged inappropriate relationship with a minor. Oklahoma fans are still giving the 21-year-old Aussie a mixed reception. Giddey's quiet season continued with only 9 points, but the Thunder did beat Golden State Warriors 138 to 136 in overtime. Scotty James made a sensational start to the new snowboarding season. In the halfpipe where he won Olympic silver 2 years ago, the Aussie superstar won gold at the opening World Cup event in China.
Honestly, today was as heavy as a show as the Olympics. Everyone really brought it and I had to bring my best.
With victory in Sweden, Olympic champion Jakara Anthony has started the World Cup moguls season with back-to-back golds.
It's always nice to go 1-1-1 through all the rounds. A bit different out here today competing, you know, coming out and going straight into finals.
Anthony is the reigning overall World Cup champion. Whenever you sit down and spend 5 minutes with Kurt Fearnley, it is a life-altering experience. We did that this week at the culmination of a painstaking task to honour every Australian Paralympian for their effort, impact and legacy.
Find another gathering like this for impact in sport and far beyond.
Paralympian number 598.
Paralympian number 381, David Hall. Paralympian 394, Louise Savage. Paralympian 807, Ellie Cole for swimming.
Danny Totoro, number 485.
Too humble to call it her idea, but we will. Danny Totoro planted the seed that became a project to link every Australian Paralympian with their numbered pin.
This is one of probably the most moving times of my whole life. I've been around and seen a lot. I've won lots of things, I've watched my mates win lots of things, but seeing my family come together in this way, being recognised, acknowledged, celebrated, it is one of the most moving things I've ever been to, and I'm so proud right now to be a Paralympian.
Re-engaging the pioneers.
And make sure that they know how valued they are, that they built this movement that is now the third biggest sport event in the world, and it's beautiful.
Liesl Tesh, 406, the journey that's given us as Paralympians a voice and the impact we're having now, but the impact into the future is extraordinary.
Refocusing current stars.
Sam Tate, 1042. Look, I look at this pin and I see the Aboriginal design on it, and it's the same as our speed suits and my sitsi, so I look at that and that drives my motivation pushing for Italy and pushing for a gold medal in 2026.
And for everyone who comes next.
You're part of a family, a big family, a family that has, you know, been built out of sometimes isolation, sometimes some pretty challenging bits, but we are built out of refusal, we're built out of hope, and that can never leave us.
Very lucky to have him, man. I was very proud to be there with them this week.
Yeah, it was a lovely story. Yeah. Thanks so much, Maddie. It might be the most wonderful time of the year, but it can also be the most expensive. From presents to food and even decorations, Christmas can deliver a blow to your bank balance. But some retailers have come up with ways to get into the festive spirit on a budget.
'Tis almost the season and Christmas shoppers need to be savvy to avoid the cost of living squeeze.
I tend to try and get in early so I can plan ahead.
Major retailers are decked out. At Big W, there's a taste for trinkets like Lamington and Vegemite ornaments under $15.
That you can pop on the tree just to make Christmas feel a little bit more Australian.
For under $100, here's how you can fill up at the cheapest retailer, Kmart. Baubles and bonbons for just $10 a box.
They're great quality, they're great value, and of course they're at exceptionally low prices.
Budget-friendly buys at Target, stockings for $15, small Santas for $6. While at Bunnings, your trolley will be lighter. It's about quality over quantity. Christmas in the yard.
You just know that you can trust the quality, and yeah, they're going to be good for this year and for many more years to come.
Lay-by is a potential way to pay, and don't forget about the benefits from membership rewards.
It's been a difficult
difficult year for all families right across Australia, and we're really conscious of that.
Other ways to save include making your own decorations, using items from the arts and crafts aisle, or considering something a little more non-traditional. Like this artificial snow for $3, a twig stem for $7. Proving a decorative dollar can go a long way. Angelique Opie, 7 News.
Amber is back now with the forecast. Amber, how's it looking tomorrow?
Much cooler, thankfully, Angela, with daytime temperatures set to dip more than 10 degrees, but we do have some wind warnings in place. All the details next.
Tonight's 7 News headlines. The Central Coast has been smashed by an intense storm, ripping roofs off homes and businesses at Long Jetty. Temperatures have soared past 40 degrees right across Sydney, proving a real test for paramedics and power companies. The Prime Minister plans to scale back migration, including a crackdown on immigration rorts and exploitation. And emergency crews say it's a miracle no one was seriously injured when a bus and car collided at Plumpton. Now, here's Amber with Sydney's weather. Amber.
Thank you, Angela. Well, it's looking like a bit of a gusty night ahead for Sydney with a cool change on the way. Right now in the city, it's still 32 degrees after that top of 40 at Observatory Hill shortly after lunchtime. We are still seeing a few storm cells on the radar, mainly north of the city at the moment. The main area of concern is around the Hunter. Warnings are in place for these zones in yellow. The storms are being generated by a humid and unstable air mass moving ahead of a trough that's currently tracking across the state from the west, with another mass of very hot air spreading across New South Wales. That strong and gusty southerly change moving along the coast tonight is expected to bring potentially damaging wind gusts to parts of the Sydney and Illawarra coast. Also a drop in temperature. We should see it dip back down into the 20s by around 8 p.m. Further north, Tropical Cyclone Jasper also continues to track towards the Queensland coast. It's currently a Category 3 system. It should weaken to a Category 2 as it approaches Cairns. Around the country tomorrow, though, in Brisbane, tops of 30 degrees forecast under partly cloudy skies, 29 and cloudy tomorrow in Canberra, 21 with a shower or two in Melbourne, rain with winds developing in Adelaide tomorrow, a sunny 31 degrees forecast over in Perth. Statewide tomorrow, we could see a few showers developing across the southeast. Still warm in the central west, though, reaching 43 degrees at Griffith, 40 tomorrow at Dubbo and at Parkes. Elsewhere, from tops of 39 degrees today, we'll see Newcastle dip back down to 27. 24 is the top tomorrow at Wollongong and at Batemans Bay. Let's zoom in now on Sydney. 30 degrees is the forecast top at Richmond, Penrith and Camden, but elsewhere daytime temperatures should generally hover in the 20s with the chance of a few showers and potentially a storm during the afternoon. On the water tomorrow, southerly winds will reach up to 35 knots early, tending north to northeasterly and easing to around 15 knots during the late afternoon. So we do have strong wind warnings in place for Sydney's enclosed waters and the coast, also further south for the waters off the Illawarra. But back in the city, 14 degrees cooler tomorrow, tops of 26 degrees expected under cloudy skies. If we look further ahead, we are expecting that heat to start building again throughout the week, reaching 33 degrees in the city on Thursday, 39 degrees again in the west, with the chance of a few showers. They are expected most likely later in the week, but looking a bit cool and cloudy across Sydney tomorrow.
Okay, thanks so much. A bit of a relief after today. Thank you, Amber. Before we go, here is a look at a special report we have coming up for you on Monday night.
The cost of living great escape.
I worked out that since we'd moved up, we'd saved $16,000.
Sydney families moving to communal estates, making massive savings on everyday costs.
I think co-housing is definitely going to be an option more and more.
Where you still work for a living, but living costs are a whole lot less. 7 News, Monday.
That is 7 News for this Saturday. We'll have updates for you throughout the evening. And Weekend Sunrise is from 7 tomorrow. I'm Angela Cox from all of the team. Thanks so much for your company. Have a great night.
Stream 7 News anytime, live and on demand on 7plus. And with 7news.com.au, you'll know the news now.